Well, the topic of team member and team development is one that I love. It's one that makes a lot of sense, but it's also one that people don't do. And what I mean by that is you might ask yourself the question, why in the world do we have all these groups that call themselves teams but don't act like teams? Why do we have these groups that are called teams and they have these team members, but the team members don't feel valued inside the team? And I think that's something that we need to unpackage. And really what it comes down to is I don't believe that the team or the team member are being honest and being truthful at the same time. You're either bent to one of those things. Either you're bent to be like, I'm going to be so truthful that it's going to hurt you and potentially make you cry. Or you're going to be so caring that maybe it's like, you know what, I don't want to hurt your feelings, so I'll do the job for you. I'll water it down a little bit, and then I'll hopefully make you feel better. But then what happens with that side, in the future, it's going to get caught up with them. It's going to catch up with them. And then you're going to have a hard conversation, and they're going to look at you and go, why didn't you tell me? Why weren't you just honest with me? And then the people that you're completely brutally honest to, they're like, you don't care about me. So how do we deal with this? So when we look at team member and team development, I'm going to give you a couple of big points and then we'll break those apart. But before we do that, what is a team? Well, a team is a group of unified, focused, and intentional people. Now think about it, unified, focused, and intentional. You can't have a team just by saying, hey, we're all in the same room and now we're a team. No, you have to be unified. You've got to be focused, which means what is your purpose, and you have to be intentional. So that's the team. What's a team member? Well, I think that the team member is the team's competitive advantage, meaning the team member is an individual. That individual has a story. That individual has things that are going on in his or her life. That individual has unique abilities and talents that nobody else has, because Scripture says that, doesn't it? That God made us fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalms 139, it says that. And he also says that he knows everything about us. And if he made us in a way that's creative, that's what makes up the team member. So the team is it's an intentional, focused, and unified group. The team member is unique and creative. But what do we mean by development? Development is not just the annual review that you get. That is the opposite of development. Development is a capacity for change. A capacity for change, but also a capacity for change with the idea that I want to always be in continuous improvement. So when I talk about team and team member development, I'm talking about a unified and focused and intentional group. I'm talking about unique individuals, and I'm talking about change, the capacity for it, but also for continuing improvement. So in 1980, which none of you were alive, okay, let's just get that out of the way. Nobody in this room was alive except for me in 1980. In 1980, in upstate New York, there was the Winter Olympics. And at that time, for hockey, at least for the United States won the gold medal in 1960 against the Russians. And actually, it was against Canada in 1960. But since 1964 to 1980, it was Russian dominance, not Russian collusion, but Russian dominance in the world of hockey. So here we go back to 1980, and you've got this coach named Herb Brooks, and he's trying to put together a team. At that time, the United States did not use professional athletes. We just didn't. So these were all college players, guys that maybe were 2 or 3 years into college, some that are graduating, they're not in the NHL yet. So he has to put together a group of individuals to play on this team. Now the team is focused, they want to win a medal, they're intentional, they're playing for the United States, and they're hopefully unified. If you've seen the movie Miracle, you see the story unfold where they're not unified at the beginning, they don't understand what's going on, they're not accepting their role until one part in that movie. And it's when they were overseas and they were playing Sweden, and they tied them. And the coach doesn't let them go to the locker room. He puts them on the line, and he makes them do sprints forever. It feels like it was forever. And he kept saying again, again. And to the place at the very end of that test or whatever he was doing, Mike Eruzione, who was the captain from Boston, said, you know what, here's my name. And usually at that point, he wanted them to know, who do you play for? And they would usually say, you know, University of Massachusetts, Boston University, University of Wisconsin, University of Minnesota, whatever. They would say that. And he finally said, I play for the United States of America. At that point was the turning point for that team. And that's actually factual, where Herb Brooks would say the name on the front of the jersey is a lot more important than the name on the back. But let's look at that team a little bit. You got the captain, who really wasn't a star player. His role, he was the captain of the team. He was the leader of the team, but he was not the star player. He never played any hockey after the 1980, I mean, probably for fun, but he didn't play any professional hockey after 1980. Then you've got guys like Jack O'Callahan and Rob McClanahan, who were the stars of that team. And then you got this guy that's a role player. And I can't pronounce his last name, so I won't try, but he was Herb Brooks' goalie for the University of Minnesota. They had just won a national championship, and he sat the bench the entire time that the 1980 hockey team was in training and also when they were in the tournament. So when you look at teams, you look at it from the perspective of who's the coach, maybe who's the assistant coach, who's the captain of that team, who's the star player, but who's also the role player. And you might ask, why am I telling you this story? Because I think you have to understand your role when it comes to teams. You got to know at times that your role might be that you're the captain, you're the leader, so you better make the decisions. So Herb Brooks had to make some decisions. He got in a lot of trouble by the United States Olympic Committee for putting people on that team that the committee didn't want on that team. And he said, you know what, I'm not looking for the best players. This is a great quote. I'm not looking for the best players, I'm looking for the right players. That coach had to make that decision. You might be the assistant coach where your job is just to support the coach and do what he or she needs you to do. That might be your role. You might be the captain where people are looking at you and going, I need you to rally the troops. You're not the leader, you're not the top leader, but I need you to rally the troops. We have people in our group that are like that. Then you might be the star player where you know that they just need you. And you know, you might just have that role today that you're the star player, or you just might be the role player. In high school, I played basketball. I know that's a shock to a lot of you because I'm short, can't jump, can't run. But the whole idea is I played basketball and I was the 12th man on a 12-man team. So my junior and senior year, and we happened to win the state tournament and even the national tournament my senior year, but I was the 12th man on that team. And my role was in practice was to get in the face of the star point guard and do everything I could to aggravate the crud out of him. Like I'd grab his jersey, I'd step on his shoes, I'd grab his shorts, which was really hard back then because they were short shorts. But I would do all those things to make Bill mad. There were times that my job was to make Bill so mad that he would want to punch me in practice. And that's what Coach told me my role was. So in practice, that was my role. In the game, my role was to be the loudest on the bench. That doesn't surprise you. But then there was also times my role was also to be the one like in Rudy when they're going, Rudy, Rudy. Yeah, they used to chant Burns because they're like, yeah, we're up by 40. Let's get the guy in the game, and it means we've got the game taken care of. When I got in the game, we were either getting blown out or we were blowing people out. So either it was put Burns in, so it's like maybe his fault because we lost, even though I don't play 30 seconds, or let's put Burns in so that it's actually like we're killing this team. I had to know my role. My role at Cedarville is not the leader. My role at Cedarville is to be a lower level person to support the leader of the school. So when you look at team member and team development in that way, we could start to break it down a little bit. So when I talk about team member, let's talk about you as a team member for a second. When I talk about team member development, I mean that you have to take responsibility. A lot of times the reason why team member development doesn't happen, you look at the leader and say, that's your job. Let me back up and say this. The team member is the organization's or the team's competitive advantage. Now, I know that's a business term, but the whole idea is the people on the team is what makes the team. I want to be very clear about that, and that's your competitive advantage. But the problem that a lot of teams have, the team member kind of folds their hands and goes, you know what, teach me. That's not the way it should be. The team member must have the proper attitude. That team member must also want to seek clarity. You're going to kind of hear a pattern here. But that team member also needs to know that, okay, it's my job to be exceptionally disciplined in what I do. If the team member doesn't take personal accountability, it doesn't matter what the team leader does. It doesn't matter at all. Because the problem with teams is the team looks at it and go, well, the coach is not giving me everything I want. I could have looked at my coach, and let me tell you, I did sometimes my senior year when the 8th grader played more than I did. Now, we had an 8th grader on our team that's actually in the Hall of Fame here at Cedarville. His name was John Kruger. So the idea is like when he would get more playing time, only like a couple seconds, but when he would get more playing time than I would look at coach and go, what are you doing? Now, my dad made a very key point to me. He's like, Brian, if you want more playing time, then talk to coach. I'm not going to talk to the coach. You talk to the coach. Brian, how's your attitude in practice? How's your attitude when he goes in? Are you giving Johnny a high five? Are you making sure that he knows, the coach knows that you're bought into the team no matter if you play or not? The best advice I ever got, because it's not about what the coach does, it's about what the player does. So number one, you got to remember, it's a mutually responsible, personally accountable thing. The other thing about team member development is if you're not honest with the team member that you're working with, there's a problem. And I struggle with this. If you think of it this way, everybody look here. If you've got this axis is love and care, and this axis is fact and truth, I'm probably over here on the axis of love and care because I don't want to make people mad. I want people to like me. That's my sin. If you want to look at Paul's, when he says that, what's my thorn in the flesh? My thorn in the flesh is I care too much about what people think. I make people bigger than God at times. But what we need to do is keep that right and tight. And what I mean by that is you got to get that over there so that you're showing love and care every time that you speak, but you're also showing truth. Meaning that if I mess up, and there are people in this room, Danny and Caleb have called me on something before, and they did it with great love and care, but they didn't lessen the facts. And that's not easy always to hear, but you want to hear that because then now you know the situation is resolved, and you're developing the team member. I'm a team member. I might be the captain, but I'm a team member. So when we look at team member development, you've got to be honest with each other, you've got to be truthful, and you've got to be caring. Now let's fast forward a little bit into team development. Now when I look at team development, you've got to first of all realize and never forget that the members of the team are what make up the team. So let me give you this process. When you select people, you better select, or recruit. Let's start with recruitment. We're getting ready to do that. When you recruit people, you better be intentional with your recruitment. When you select them, you better hire slow, fire fast. I don't know if you've ever heard that saying. You hire slow, you do your due diligence, you take your time, because if you put the wrong person in the team or on the team, now you got to deal with that. And we have done that before. I have put the wrong person on a team, and then I have to deal with it. So you got to be careful with your recruitment, your selection. Then you go into casting. I know it kind of feels like you're in a Disney term right now, but then you've got to go into casting. And it's important when you do and you put people in certain positions, do you see the potential in them? Can they handle that position? Can I also say, do they want that position? So a lot of times when I get ready to put somebody in a position, or Dan and I, we'll have a conversation with them. What do you think? Think about that. Let me know. Pray about that and come back, because I want to make sure that I cast them in the right position. Do you notice there's nothing about training yet, is there? I did recruitment, I did selection, I did casting, then I do training. Then after training, I want to review what's going on. I want to reward people that do a good job, and I want to recalibrate. So it starts with selection, but it doesn't just stop once they get on the team or after training. I need to be continually reviewing what's going on, recalibrating what they're doing, and rewarding when they do things well. That's important for team development. Now, if you go back to team member development, one of the things that's really important is that you know people's story. Everybody has a story. You got to know their story, and you've got to envision that story to the end. Not their death, Okay, that's not the end I'm talking about. But for you guys, when I get ready to hire somebody to be a personal assistant to Dan or myself or something, I'm looking at their story going, okay, is this going to fit? What is this going to provide for them when they graduate from Cedarville? So I did that with Allie. What is this going to do for her when she graduates? I was envisioning the end of that story. But can I tell you this? Your story never ends. Now, you're going to be shocked that I'm going to quote Walt Disney right now, but I'm going to. When he was done with, or when he had just completed Disneyland, he looked at somebody and said, movies are something that you can do, and then you're done with them. So like Mary Poppins Returns, I just saw it. You watch the movie's over, the movie's done. He used to say the movie's in the can because it would be in the film can. It's done, it's finished. But he said Disneyland will never be finished. It can continually improve. Now think about that. If an amusement park can continually improve, so can you as a team member. So you can't look at your team member, and I've done this before, and look at them and go, well, this person is this way, they'll never change. No, that's the wrong kind of attitude. So you've got to be willing to look at their story. So that goes, when we're doing team member and team development, that's why we do organizational assessment. That's why I want you, our awareness. I want you to be aware of our who, our why, our what, and our how. Our who is our culture, our why is our mission and vision, our what is our expectation, our how is how we do the job. I want you to be clear on that so you know how to do that. But I want to know you. So one of the things that I do with the execs, I say, hey, what's your office hour and what is something that I can pray for you for? Because I want to know them. It helps me know their story. I want to get to know them. When we were in Indianapolis at our training, I had them all go around the room and I took notes. I found out at that time, and she knows, and I'm going to say this, Cassie likes PG Tips tea. So I'll bring it in at times for her because I know she likes that. I know different things about that team so that I can say things about that team member. So you have that personal assessment and you have that organizational awareness. And you might go, well, I'm not the leader. I can't get to know the people on my team. Yeah, you can. The best thing that I can do is get to know Mindy and Brad and Aaron and Jim, who are not on technically our team, but they're a part of the Student Life Christian Ministries team. I can get to know them even though I'm not their boss. Because if I get to know an Aaron Cook and I can pray for an Aaron Cook and I can support an Aaron Cook, I am being a good teammate. So being a part of a good team means that you're a good teammate. All right? So when you look at this, and I'm going to end with this, and it's by Brian White, who's a friend of mine. He's now a trustee here. He said this: speak the truth in love at all times. Right? Hey, we like that. Nobody's going to disagree with that. But don't cut the truth in half and call it love. Look at Jesus. Jesus with the disciples. There are some pretty harsh things that Jesus said to his disciples. I was just reading the other day when Jesus was dealing with Peter at the end, right at the Last Supper, and he had to tell Peter, you're going to deny me. There was a reason why Jesus did that. It was a part of Peter's development. Now, Peter could have taken his candy and walked home and said, I'm done with this. Or he could have just did what he did, and Peter turned out to be somebody that's on fire for Jesus Christ. And we talk about him today. But he betrayed. See, your failure doesn't also dictate where you're going to end either. So team member development is you speak the truth in love at all times, but don't cut the truth in half and call it love. So on your tables is just a little chart. And what I do with this, it's something, I don't even do it on a piece of paper, but I do it in my mind. So if I'm meeting, I'm going to pick on Marcus a little bit, and we're done. But if I'm meeting with Marcus and Kristen and we're talking about involvement, I'm looking at this chart and I'm thinking in my mind, what are the facts that we need to talk about? But how do I still show care to them? So one of the ideas that they came up with this year, which was a great idea, and I admit that now, but was a great idea, was the President's, what was the thing we called it? Collective. Yeah, I couldn't remember. We went through so many names, but the President's Collective. And they came to us and I'm like, I don't know about this. I'm a little concerned. But Marcus and Kristen kept coming back with facts and truth and care. And we handled that one pretty well. And now I can look at this, even though I'll be honest, I didn't know if it would work. And he knows that. And so does Ryan and Clara. But because we handled it with care and we just dealt with the facts, I can look at him now and he knows that I still have his back, and Kristen knows that I still have his back. So it's good conflict. There's such a thing as good conflict. The A or C type conflict. If you've ever been in management, you know that. If you're in a conflict where it's about you're attacking the person, bad conflict. If you're in a conflict where you're attacking a situation, good conflict. And my voice just went up right there, and it's fun that way. So conflict is not bad, but so some of that is team and team member development. And I believe the trust that I have now in Marcus and Kristen, well, I know it went up. I don't know about their trust in me, but my trust in them skyrocketed because they listened to me and they changed what they did. They didn't loosen or go away from what they wanted to do, but I think it made it a better event. Think about every single thing that you do with friends, with family. You know, it's okay to have conflict, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. That is a real saying, okay? Nobody write that down for a Burnsism. It is a real saying, I promise you. Google it. But the whole idea is understand that when you're dealing with family, you're dealing with friends, make sure you look at how you're caring for people, but being truthful with people. That's the one thing I'm seeing right now and I'm being convicted on is I need to be truthful even if it might hurt right now to that individual, because I'm showing love to that individual by being truthful. Now, if I just want to be spiteful, I need to keep my mouth shut, right? That's what I tell my kids. If you're just being nasty, keep your mouth shut. But if you've got something that can really help, speak up.